So a caber toss, it's a crazy thing. World record attempt was to surpass 122 caber tosses in a single hour. And the man who was trying to attempt this was called Jason Baines. The park had no accessible internet. We had no way to plug in a connection. And we knew at the same time that this was going to be streamed to a lot of people. Having a steady connection was absolutely important. And I came upon Dejero, which seemed to be the perfect solution. The event was a success. There was no dropouts, and he broke his records.
Gone are the days of a handful of traditional media giants dominating the industry. Content creators are behind some of the most innovative and engaging audio, video, and live performances. Welcome to Critical Connections, a podcast that features the people and companies helping to make our communities connected, informed, and safe. I'm Evie Cuervo with Dejero. Joining me today is John Castillo. He's the CEO and creative director at Scratch Takes. That's a Montreal production company that offers a number of services from live streaming to sport capture, podcast production, and more. Welcome, John.
Hi, thanks for having me.
John, you wear many hats. You're a filmmaker, live stream producer, technical director, educator, teaching music production and technology at York University. What sparked your passion for all things media?
It all started when I was in high school and I was trying to decide what it is that I wanted to do with my life, with my career. I was a musician. I loved music. I still am a musician. And when I was sort of deciding what I wanted to pursue in the future, I was talking to my mom about this, and I wanted to find something that combined both of my passions, which was music and science. At the time, there was this thing called iTunes University, where you could look up different lectures from universities in different parts of the world. And I stumbled on this lecture by one of my future professors called Martha De Francisco, and she was talking about acoustics. She talked about acoustics in a concert hall, how instruments project, and I just was so fascinated by this that I decided to look up more about this program. And that's when I sort of came upon the world of audio engineering.
That's very cool. So talk to us then about Scratch Takes. You founded the company in 2016. Take us back to that time and tell me what inspired you to start this company.
I started Scratch Takes in the middle of my master's when I was doing the master's in sound recording at McGill University. And at the time, I was full in on audio engineering. I was recording a lot of orchestras, a lot of jazz bands, a lot of rock bands, you name it. I was getting as many musicians as I could into the studio. And what I noticed was that a lot of the musicians were focusing a lot on the album recording, which is extremely important. But in this day and age that we live in, video production is also vital. I mean, we're doing a video podcast right now just to showcase the importance of video, even for something that is primarily distributed by audio. And so I decided, what can I do in order to help these artists go further with their time in the studio? At the same time, I started learning a little bit about live streaming at the university. I became one of the webcast technicians. And so I started to learn how to use cameras, how to interconnect both of these worlds, the audio and the video world. And I decided to bring that knowledge into the studio. So just bring like 2 cameras, record the same way we would an album, but with 2 cameras in the studio that are just sort of capturing behind the scenes. At the end of the session, we have all the raw takes from the recording, as well as all the video recording. And I decided, well, you know what these are called? These are called scratch takes. It's like the first take that you do is called the scratch take before you edit it all together and create an album mix. And so I decided to lean into that a little bit and say, okay, well, here we go, scratch takes. And the purpose of it was really to help artists get a little bit more content, get a little bit more out of their studio time.
That's interesting. So let's fast forward now to 2021. This is the first time you connect with Dejero, but it's for an interesting event that perhaps some people haven't heard of. It's called the Montreal Highland Games. So before we kind of get into the deep of it, explain what it is and talk to us about this incredible opportunity that presented itself.
The Highland Games in general are a celebration of Scottish culture. So that's, Scottish music, dress, dance, and in particular, a big aspect of the Highland Games is the Highland sports. And there's a lot of sports that are involved. I think the major ones are the tug of war and the caber toss. And this was in the middle of COVID 2021. In Quebec and Montreal, people could not group together at this time. So we had this challenge of trying to bring people together remotely. The proposal was we're going to try to break a Guinness World Record. And it was doing something called a caber toss.
Can you explain what this caber toss is? Because perhaps people haven't connected the dots exactly about what it entails.
A caber toss is essentially picture a telephone pole. So this is, I believe, a piece of wood that's 16 to 20 feet tall. It weighs 90 to 150 pounds, this log, enormous telephone pole. And what a caber toss is you have to grab it, essentially balance it on your hands, flip it over. If it flips into the opposite direction that you're standing, that's considered a successful toss. The world record attempt was to surpass 122 caber tosses in a single hour. And the man who was trying to attempt this was called Jason Baines. He held the previous record, which was, I believe, 121 caber tosses. He was trying to surpass it by at least one to break his own record. And he was able to do 166 caber tosses in a single hour, which is just, if you do the math, that's more than 2 a minute.
Wow.
Telephone poles. I cannot stress this enough, how incredible it is to see this person do this.
Well, it's incredible. So it's important to lean into what was happening around that time. So this is 2021 in the midst of, a global pandemic. You said at that time, unless there is reliable connectivity, it would be very difficult to bring an event like this to the masses virtually. So tell us about then the challenge you face and the role that Dejero played.
Yeah, absolutely. So because this was done in the middle of a pandemic, and also it's a sport that requires a lot of space because, once again, telephone poles being flipped outside, it was done remotely. And we were in a park in Verdun in Montreal. The park had no accessible internet. We had no way to plug in a connection. And we knew at the same time that this was going to be streamed to a lot of people who usually get together in person. A lot of people were going to be watching this, and also a Guinness World Record attempt. Even more people than the regular community would probably be tuning in. So having a steady connection was absolutely important. And we were beginning from the fact that there was no tetherable Ethernet connection. So that was tough. I started to do some research into what solutions were possible, and I came upon Dejero, which seemed to be the perfect solution. I found other companies as well, but what was really interesting about Dejero was that I hopped on a call, one of my favorite things, to hop on a call and not just do things over email, and I had a conversation with people who were explaining to me what it is that they did, what it is that how we can integrate our system with the Dejero system. And that really just brought so much confidence, and I felt secure in working with Dejero. So that is how that's how we met for the first time. That's how we started working together for the first time. And the event was a success. There was no dropouts, and he broke his record. So all the boxes were ticked, and I was super happy with the result.
Have you ever heard before about smart blending technology? I mean, I think a lot of people in the industry have heard of failover, but smart blending technology sort of takes it a step further.
So I had never heard of smart blending technology before. I had heard of failover, and I remember in my conversation with the technical coordinator at Dejero, I essentially described failover, and I remember he corrected me. He's like, no, this is not the same thing. And then he explained to me what smart blending technology was, and I was like, so this is essentially a improved version of failover. We used what's called the Dejero gateway, and the gateway is comprised of multiple different network providers. So, whatever network providers are in your area, there's at least 3 of them. When you are streaming, what the gateway does is it uploads all of that through all the providers, and then it reaches the other end simultaneously, meaning that if any of them go down, then you have that immediate backup that is provided by the other 2 providers. And something that I found interesting, not possible during the Montreal Highland games because, again, there was no tetherable Ethernet, but you can also connect an Ethernet connection to this Dejero gateway, which is just the best of all worlds, right? You have that physical connection, you have the smart blending technology, so you're just safe on multiple accounts. And as anyone who's in live streaming knows, redundancy, you can never have enough redundancies.
Yeah, smart blind technology is really just a software, and it's in many of our form factors. And what it does is essentially what you said. It just takes the best of all the available networks. And so it gives you that resiliency and that reliable connectivity that you need. And, during such an, wild event as it was during the global pandemic, to have an event like this and for people to connect in a different way. What was that like? What was the reception like, as it was happening and afterwards?
I think, to be honest, I feel like I experienced it in 2 waves, because the first wave was on the ground as it was happening, and just the chaos of working this event, right? Which, as anyone knows in live streaming, it's you zone out the whole world and you focus on what's going on. But we were working with the Montreal Highland game organizers, and the initial response was just like, wow, this is going well, which is really great, because a lot of us were nervous. This was our first time doing a remote live stream. It was their first time doing a remote live stream. And considering the state of the world, things could have gone wrong on multiple different fronts. Whether someone got sick all of a sudden, there's so many different things could have gone wrong. So on the ground, things were going quite well. And that was the first thing. Then after the Guinness World Record was broken and the event ended, and we started to actually see the response from everyone who was watching online and reading the comments, it was just one of the most, it was one of my happiest moments, I think, during the pandemic, to see people actually happy online, connecting to one another. You could see the conversations happening in the chat of people who hadn't seen each other for a long time, and all sort of experiencing this moment simultaneously. That's what really, that's what I find so amazing about live streaming, that other video mediums don't allow, is that connection to your audience that happens live and everyone's in it together.
Yeah, that's a really powerful moment when you're able to connect with people that perhaps you're not beside, but you're feeling that excitement from an event that's happening in real time. This then led to another event, and it was for a good cause. Tell us a little bit about how you collaborated with Dejero for some of your fundraising efforts.
We had another event that had a similar problem in that we did not have internet. The event was called Concert for Peace, and it was an orchestral event with the goal of raising money to support the civilians with the war between Ukraine and Russia. And because it was a fundraiser, everyone was volunteering their time, from the musicians to the technicians. This event was done at the Notre Dame Basilica of Montreal, which is a beautiful church. It's also huge, which is its own challenges. But when we went into the church to scout the location for the first time, I asked about the internet connection, and they told me, you have the City of Montreal Wi-Fi, which, if for anyone who knows the City of Montreal Wi-Fi, it's not the most trustworthy.
And listen, to be fair, most big cities, internet connection is not reliable. I mean, right now you and I are in different parts of the city and big cities, and still there's impact in connectivity. So you can only imagine how much worse it can get in a big stone building.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And so I reached out to Dejero and I said, hey, we are doing this event, this Concert for Peace, and everyone is volunteering their time. Would you be willing to volunteer your gateway in exchange for putting your name in the credits? And Dejero came through. You guys sent us the gateway. You had a technician supporting us when we needed it, and it's wonderful to have people come together for an event such as that one. We ended up raising $160,000 on that event, which was made possible by all of the people volunteering and all of the companies that helped out as well.
Were people surprised to see that an event was being streamed from there and that actually was getting to other people in other parts?
You know, I think so. The Notre Dame Basilica, because it's a historic site, it is sometimes difficult to do productions in there because, and rightfully so, people are nervous about the infrastructure and retaining this location. But I will say that after we did our live stream, they now have internet because I went there again in the future and they actually had a physical connection that they could use. So I think, I think we might have changed something there.
That's great. You are, still young in your career. What does success look like for you when it comes to scratch takes? And, sort of what are you aspiring to reach? What's that ultimate goal?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about two things, which is education and small businesses. As a professor, I love to teach and to teach my errors from the past to try to like allow my students to not have to go through those same hurdles. They'll have their own hurdles. Everyone's always going to have hurdles. But if what I can do is sort of allow you to start two steps forward, then I feel like I'm doing my job. Education is one thing, and then the second thing is small businesses. There's so many small businesses in Canada and everywhere in the world, and small businesses have a hard time, And so what I want to do is bring my knowledge from my side of the business and try to help small businesses in any way I can. And what I know best is technology, media, and distribution. So what does success look like in a couple of years? I would say I want to empower the workers of tomorrow to be doing amazing things. And I want to empower small businesses to go further and reach their audience wherever it is that may be in any way that I can.
If there was any advice that you could share with these young entrepreneurs when it comes to distribution, what would you say to them?
I would say things take time. That's like the biggest lesson I think that I've learned, and that a lot of people will say as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner, as a content creator, is that trust the process. Things take time. If you don't see results immediately, it doesn't mean that you're doing the wrong thing. You can learn from the feedback that you get. Be analytical with your business, be analytical with your artistry, be analytical with your content creation, and try to see where you can improve. But at the same time, make sure to give yourself the runway that's necessary. And usually I tell people, like, at the minimum, 2 years. Give yourself a 2-year runway. And once you have those 2 years under your belt, you can really look back and compare, okay, well, 1 year ago, what was I doing? How was that looking? 2 years ago, what was I doing? How is that looking compared to now? Am I seeing growth? Where is that growth happening? Where is it not happening? And then tweak the minor things necessary so that you are growing in the right direction.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you so much, Evie. It was a beautiful conversation.
To learn more about Dejero and its game-changing connectivity for media production services, head to dejero.com.